Hello everyone, this is part 2 of the annual cybersecurity threat landscape presentation for 2024. Want to remind you that we are picking up where we left off, where we are talking about the leading causes of ransomware attacks in 2024. They are listed here: exploited vulnerabilities, compromised credentials, malicious email, phishing, and brute force attacks. Again, patching your devices is something that every organization should be doing. If you have a significant amount of infrastructure at your place or in the cloud, it is paramount that you get a procedure in place to patch regularly. You should be looking at getting a vulnerability management software to scan for and look for vulnerabilities on those systems, whether they're servers, network devices, it could be firmware upgrades for anything. Also, taking a look at compromised credentials, making sure that password management is number one in the security mindset, where you have either an encrypted local software to handle the passwords, or you're using a web-based online system where the passwords are stored in some encrypted repository. Making sure your end users get their annual training, which is what this is all about, to make sure that people are doing their training. That will help combat some of the malicious emails that are coming. Not only are they coming through email, but outside of this presentation in this slide, but they can also come in through text messages and things like that. So you have to really pay attention to who is contacting you. Now, what we've seen differently since last year to this year is that the tide is turning against the misconceptions. Organizations are now realizing that it is happening to them. The 66% of small to medium businesses report that they have fallen victim to ransomware, but the gap is closing between what it was, I think, the prior year. Some of those weren't doing anything about it. So they are very concerned, and they are starting to spend to get that fixed. Now, we know about the multi-layered approach to security. We know that in times past, it was called a defense in-depth type of architecture, where you would have something at the perimeter, something on the endpoint, you would have something along the wire watching for things, and all these various different devices had their set job function. Well, in today's technology, a lot of that stuff can be rolled up into one, and some of the appliances that we'll mention later on can do that, such as the Palo Alto firewall, which has inline inspection and IPS features, as well as the traditional firewall protection that comes with it. So here we look at the identity protection and access management. We look at the layered security defenses, as I just mentioned, backup and disaster recovery options. You must also have good email security, web and network security, end user training. Obviously, that's a must. Endpoint security, which is changing, and we'll see that in a couple slides here, that we have obviously graduated from the traditional antivirus and hybrid to now more of a behavioral-based machine learning endpoint detection and response to manage detection and response capabilities. So now the preferred method is the zero trust, where you trust absolutely nothing, no matter what side of the network it is on. And some of the software vendors out there can do this for you. Netscope has some, Citrix, of course, Palo Alto, SASE, it's the way to go. They have a continuous posture assessment that happens to the user on the network, as well as everything else that is running on the network. This enhanced security reduces risk by enforcing a least privileged access model, minimized data breach impact by limiting the exposure even if breached. This provides more increased visibility. Again, with Palo Alto, you have the ability to look at the endpoint, the user, the network, both not only as into the applications and data that's passing across the wire, but also the performance of that link. Increased compliance, right? It helps meet regulatory standards when you have zero trust. They're looking for this. Insurance providers are looking for this. And it supports remote work for organizations that are obviously knowledge workers and have that virtual setup. Then this will help out with those types of employees out there. Some of the vendors that help out with the zero trust approach, we have Microsoft, Azure, Active Directory, and Defender for Endpoint, Cisco, Duo Security, and Umbrella, Palo Alto Networks, Prisma Access, my favorite, Cortex XDR for the endpoint. We also have Okta, Identity and Access Management, Exidium, which is a new and up and coming. If you guys don't know, I would pay attention to them. They were formerly the Komodo people that used to do certificates, in which they sold that off to Sectigo, and now Exidium is rebranded as Exidium, and they have a really cool Swiss Army knife. So if you're a small organization or even large, but you're looking to do something where you have to manage devices, not only for mobile device management, patching, but also for endpoint security, then Exidium might be the flavor for you. Not only that, they work across any platform. I am surprised they don't work on smartwatches. Anyways, there's Zscaler, right? We talked about that, Zscaler. There is the private access for that and the internet access. Fortinet with its FortiGate and FortiClient setup, and of course IBM's QRadar is something to keep in mind. So how are we defining the next generation EDR versus traditional AV, right? Because we looked at that. Last year we talked about how the new ones are hybrid. They're not really strictly, signature based anymore, because that takes a long time to update, especially if you're not online. If you're not getting the updates, you're not going to know about a threat, and the threat might come to you first. But then also we can look at some of the behavioral based, right? So now it's moving over to the next gen, which is leading with Palo Alto's Cortex XDR, Sentinel-1, Cylance, Carbon Black, which right now is probably not something you want to get into. Recent mergers and acquisitions have affected the performance of Carbon Black, as well as looking at CrowdStrike. A little bit of mud on their face because of what happened with their patching, that update that got out and caused the outage that affected a lot of people in a lot of places with airlines and organizations all around the world. So you probably want to stick with some of the ones that I just mentioned, which I did not get Exidium to be listed on here, but I would definitely bet $1 on them for sure. So recent attack types that you can see, we're seeing things like cloud jacking, account takeover. We're seeing tax scams, right, which usually comes around tax time. Phishing, of course. Business email compromise, right? Business email compromise is when they're going to, send something out that is, designed to be impersonating like senior executives or trick employees and customers into wiring payments for goods. I think a sophisticated one that came through wasn't so much an email, but what was an AI-assisted voice call in which the executive asked the accountant to continue to wire money in a certain direction, which is very bizarre. Cryptojacking, using your assets to mine Bitcoin, okay? A lot of companies feel that they are not a target. You are a target. So you need to secure your humans, right? You should. And there's various training platforms that are out there, one being KnowBe4, Proofpoint, Mimecast, Breach Secure Now. There's an organization out there that's using that too as well. YouTube, right? You can get some information and some training from there, right? If you really want to go the cost-saving route. There's a lot of statistics to see here, right? For small businesses, right? Overall, 832 incidents, 130 confirmed data disclosures, and the top pattern was system intrusion and social engineering and privilege misuse. So that is something else to consider when you're rolling out network infrastructure and you're rolling out servers. You got to make sure that things are configured and hardened. I would suggest using a platform like Tenable to do some CIS hardening scans, where you can scan an asset for a member server or Active Directory server for level 1 or level 2 and get it to be hardened, but of course have the application still work. Public administration, right? We had 2,800 incidents. That is very common. System intrusion. And so how do we fix this? Right? We need to fix it through training, technology, and outsourcing where it fits. Sometimes things just can't be done inside. You can't wear enough hats, and you just gotta outsource this to the professionals that really know what they're doing. So there is a platform. There's many of them that are out there. One of them here, which is like a Breach Secure Now, showing you a credit score type rating for someone doing some training, and in this demonstration it'll show you some users that are competing, and it's a ranking system, and here it's got my name in there as the employee, and my screen name is obfuscated so that people can't really see that it's me, but they can see that they are not number one. Next generation technology that can help out with all of this stuff, right, is perimeter and cloud security, whether it's firewalls, endpoint protection, EDR, MDR, SIMs, and backups. That's going to be pretty much your eyes on the network. So to control and combat this ransomware, you can use email filtering, anti-phishing training, vulnerability and patch management, as I mentioned before, multi-factor authentication, disabling RDP access where not needed, password management, monitoring and response to any incidents that come across. Again, it can be events. It starts off as events, and events and incidences are different. Just want to let you know about that. If the event becomes significant, it turns into an incident. You should have tested and segregated backups. You should do this often, I would say quarterly. And you should have an incident response plan. Now, incident response plans are something that should be custom tailored. It's not like a one-size-fits-all. Certain organizations will have reporting requirements for the regulation of the state that they are competing in and or the industry in which they participate in. So you need to keep that in mind. There's web filtering, anti-phishing protection. Palo Alto Networks has this. You can talk to me about that. And there's also, cybersecurity insurance, which you just transfer that risk. So email filtering and phish proofing your end users. Again, an annual training is something that is mandatory, but I suggest that weekly videos every so often that show current trends or different attack types or some things that are happening that are current would be good. Simulating the click-through testing and looking at what the click rate is for your organization. In a patch and vulnerability management process, you have to detect the vulnerability, assess the risk, and prioritize that remediation. You may actually have to confirm after you patch and rescan to make sure that those vulnerabilities are dropping off. This can be a full-time job, and it might be something that you might want to outsource, so keep that in mind, but it's something that is quite time-consuming. You can help improve security to the assets in your environment. Again, I would think of zero trust being the ultimate, but taking it a step further from two-factor to multi-factor, requiring different types of input to verify and validate you would be beneficial. You can also talk about geofencing, being able to limit who logs in from where, and also finding out who is logging from what location almost simultaneously, being able to block those types of logins. So password management, this is something that we could see on the other slide, but taking that a step further with privileged access management. This is something that every company should do. You should never use domain admin level of credentials to log into an endpoint or a laptop. You should always have a reduced role, least privileged, as always, whenever you're doing your job, so that whatever harm may come, it is mitigated or limited by the role that you are operating in. With privileged access management, there are several vendors out there. One of them is Delinea, which formerly was Thycotic Secure Server. I'm not sure if they still have the free secure server for 25 users or less, but that's something to look at and pilot. Also, you could use something as advanced as the other solutions like CyberArk. So there are some that are out there. Next generation endpoint protection, managed detection and response. Right here we're looking at the compromise, the detection, the analysis, the response, and remediation, making sure that your endpoint protection that you do choose can see all the actions that the malware is going to execute on the network, on the device. There is a MITRE attack chain simulation that they go through to see where in the scoring system that the malware is allowed to move and create actions. And the more that is completed without detection, the lower that MDR or XDR or EDR solution ranks in the group. So right now I think Palo Alto is number one. Backup testing and placement, right? It's that 3-2-1 theory, 3 copies, 2 different forms, 1 offsite. Always validate your backups. Do it, check it, test it, make sure the files are showing up. Make it the first thing you do Monday morning and test that out. Document and time to restore. It is good to know because you're going to have those recovery time objectives to remember you have to execute and reach. So RTO, RPO. Incident response plan. Do you have one? When something happens, right? It could be an insider threat. It could be business email compromise, phishing. So you need to have playbooks that are developed custom to your organization and your organization's topology. Create and test them with your current tools. Again, some of the tools that are out there can help orchestrate some of the responses once something is detected. You can have playbooks that are written that resemble some of the playbooks that are into the software, and vice versa. They can help write each other. So keep that in mind. And those should be updated like backups, tested regularly. You should do tabletop exercises and simulate an incident response. With Palo Alto's web filtering and anti-phishing, this is something that you can do by either the rule or a licensed feature. You can create safe lists, whitelist for your end users and servers, and then create the blacklist after that to block sites that you don't want those people to go to. For all of this to happen, the Palo Alto Networks 10.0 has the anti-phishing, protection against business email compromise, Office 365 attacks, Gmail, etc. Make sure you have the latest OS. Data encryption, making it harder for the bad guys. Again, this is something that you can do if you're working with Microsoft SQL. 2019 allows for encryptions for the transactions. I know some clients in which they encrypt, certain tables, certain, columns in tables and things like that may have social security numbers. Again, encrypted tables is a really good idea. So, cyber insurance, when you can't get everything, remember, with the good guys, we have to be right all the time. The bad guys, they just need to be right once. So it's kind of not fair, but it's the way it is. Cyber insurance, what to do, right, and how to get the best policy and rate. You must concentrate on having your multi-factor authentication in place. Make sure you have a pen test done annually would be a great idea. Some do biannually. Do a compliance audit. See where you stand. If you don't have a compliance program, look out to get one, a security framework. A common one is the NIST CSF, the cybersecurity framework, and recently it has been updated to 2.0, and that includes the govern portion of it, then the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So that govern section covers what the organization does at the business level to identify and accept risk and how to push that throughout the business, including IT. And then sometimes those two don't see risk the same, and that's why this actually came out in a project that I did a while ago and now it's actually in a framework. So it's kind of neat how that happens. Vendors that you can use to help you get this far: Palo Alto Networks. It has Palo Alto SASE. It has Strata for the firewall, SASE for the remote enforcement of security for remote users and workers. You can do your mobile user networks. You can do your different data centers. There is Prisma, which has the cloud, right, where you can put your servers in the cloud and have a secure computing environment. Works across all the 3 clouds that are out there: AWS, Azure, and Google, as well as Kubernetes. The Synology is one of those devices that you can use for backups. It is inexpensive, and this would be for the SMBs. For anybody who is larger than small, medium businesses and you want to do something else, there's other organizations out there that really work well with bringing in these solutions to you. You can reach out to me and I can pass you up to them. They are much bigger than this organization here. And that would be something you would be working with Rubrik. You can do Dell. They have a platform when you're looking for immutable and air-gapped backups, which is the ultimate backup architecture that you're looking for. Synology is kind of like just passing the muster, being able to get that time machine. Again, whenever you set these things up, you should always put them in a separate network. You should make the network that's going to be running the backups have no gateway, so that it can only talk to the backup appliance and nothing else, and that nothing else can reach it from the other network adapter. Have that enforced with the policies on the firewall for the network that is in, is my recommendation. The top cybersecurity breaches of 2024. Finally, we're here. So this is some of the cool statistics that you're all waiting for. So let's get right into it. Breach types in 2024, right? We see the largest again as ransomware. It is huge, followed by data theft, email compromise, and customer data leak. Again, some of that information we need to keep a handle on. Make sure it doesn't get out where it doesn't belong. API exploits is another one. So again, when you get your pen test done and you have APIs, might be a good idea to have those APIs tested to see what commands are being used and how that data moves across through that connection. That is something to think about. We've got health data leak, we've got botnets, insider threats, email, supply chain. That's going to be something up and coming. Again, third-party risk management is huge. Again, they may not be going after you directly. They may be going after you through your partner. Data breaches, right? Here we go. Data exposed and breached by millions. We have United Health Group as the largest one. That was over 50 million records, followed by Microsoft executive accounts, which dropped. I think we're doing this in some type of a chronological order, not so much a volume. Neiman Marcus, we have Twilio, Health Equity, Varda, the Soho router hijacking, MITA nerve breach. Again, some of the stuff wasn't records. It could have been something else. Screen Connect by ConnectWise. Some of us use that to get into clients. And United Health Group had data exposed of 50 million, which we just saw. Impact was high. Microsoft only had 2 million, but again, that was pretty high. Email compromise. Neiman Marcus was a customer data leak, exposed 31 million, medium impact. Twilio auth the MFA API exploit, again testing those APIs. Proof is in the pudding. Health Equity, Soho. Here we go. Nothing exposed here for MITRE, but the impact was high. It was in espionage, so that's not good. We have some health care organizations, National Registration Department, right? Malaysia. I think everyone, all of us, are in that one. So if you're seeing stuff come in your inbox or your phone's blowing up, unfortunately, it's because of this. Super VPN. And that is it, everyone. If you have any questions, I love that. Adapt or die. That's pretty much it. If you don't adapt to some of the the security issues that are happening in the world, you will be out of business. Thanks, everyone.